So if you guys didn't know, over the Christmas, or on Christmas actually, America bombed Nigeria. Now, I am, you know, I need to look at what the definition of a Pan-Africanist is, right? Someone who's a Pan-Africanist? Pan-Africanist. Yeah. I need to Google the definition of what that is, but I'm probably that. Okay, I want the best for Africa. I want the best for the entire diaspora. But Africa is a disgrace. It really is. It's the more I dig into it, it is a joke. The more I dig into the history, it is a joke. It's very difficult. I don't even like watching the clips of like racist white people attacking Africa because I can't defend it. Even though the people are racist, even though I don't like them, I can't defend the continent. I really can't. The things that have been going on for years. You know, we have a shining light, Ibrahim Traoré, Mali president, we have a few. But the overwhelming majority, I mean, Nigeria, it's a joke. Every Nigerian I have spoke to is embarrassed to be from Nigeria. What they did with Niger, he was trying to remove itself from the colonial pact. And they went into their neighbors, their African neighbors, they went in on behalf of France and tried to force them to stay in that colonial pact that is crippling all these countries. It's a disgrace of a country. And it's not just Nigeria. Ghana's a disgrace. Ghana's probably the best African country. And it's a disgrace. Congo, the biggest disgrace. I mean, you can go list by list. The leaderships in these countries are absolutely... They make me sick. Honestly. You go to the Caribbean, Jamaica. It's a joke. Haiti.
The anti-black algorithm did not want you to know that the US just bombed Nigeria. But this news matters to all of us, so give me 2 minutes to explain. On Christmas Day, Trump authorized the US military to carry out an airstrike in northwest Nigeria. The US claims this strike was apparently in retaliation against ISIS fighters who were in the area, who Trump described as quote-unquote viciously killing and targeting Christians at levels unseen for quote-unquote centuries. So you're probably asking, okay, why is the US getting involved? What does this have to do with us? And the answer is that this whole situation is the latest move in the conservative Christian nationalist campaign to propagandize the American public into believing that Christians are under attack, both here in the US, as we've recently seen with the Samantha Folnicki University of Oklahoma ordeal, but also internationally, as the Trump admin has continually antagonized Nigeria for months now, claiming the country is facilitating a Christian genocide and putting Nigeria on the State Department's countries of particular concern watch list. And if you're wondering, yes, this is the exact same Christian genocide disinformation touted by Nicki Minaj at the UN before she was besties with Erica Kirk. And before we go any further, let's set the record straight. Nigeria is a secular nation, and half of the country is Christian basically, and half of it's Muslim. And by all reputable methodological accounts, there is no evidence that Christians are uniquely being targeted in Nigeria. For example, Trump cited data that said 3,100 Christians had been killed in Nigeria from October 2023 to 2024. But he failed to mention that the exact same report, which was from a Christian organization, mind you, found that 2,320 Muslims had also been killed in Nigeria during the exact same time period. Yet we don't see Trump calling for an end to a Muslim genocide despite being so interested in religious freedom. Yes, it is true that Nigeria is in the midst of a security crisis that is driving the deaths of innocent civilians. But no, nothing points to this violence having a religious dimension. But the truth is that the US just wants American Christians to believe that there is some kind of anti-Christian motivation behind the violence because it legitimizes, one, ongoing US intervention across the African continent. Because let's not forget who is actually benefiting from the DRC-Rwanda peace agreement facilitated by the US and who is in cahoots with the UAE, which is funding a genocide in Sudan. And two, legitimizes domestic policy that perpetuates Christian nationalism and the institutionalization of conservative bigoted values under the guise of Christians need to be protected because they're being discriminated against. The TLDR is that the US bombing Nigeria is our fascist government's latest attempt to manufacture consent, to our tax dollars being used to destabilize countries we never had any business being in, to maintain our freedoms in the imperial core by maintaining the destruction of sovereign, resource-rich nations outside of the West. And manufacturing consent to terrorize African peoples has always been the easiest to do. Because to most people in the West, this terror is just another faceless, nameless conflict in the blackest continent on Earth. And anti-blackness has bred indifference. Given months of villainization from the US, it is unsurprising that Nigeria cooperated with the US to let this airstrike happen. They probably felt backed into a wall. But the Nigerian government has made clear that this strike was not authorized in response to Christian persecution. They've emphasized that the country is multi-religious and that the armed groups are attacking both Christians and Muslims. Meanwhile, Nigerians in Sokoto State, where the bombs dropped, are fearing for their lives. Residents in one village called Jabo said buildings shaked and the night sky turned red when the strike started. And here is the kicker. These civilians said their village has never experienced an ISIS attack. The baseless violence that the US is raining on Nigeria.
So I want to address a few things she said here, and I want to start with something she said at the end. She said something along the lines of, yeah, sure, of course the Nigerians, eventually acquiesced to America because they probably felt trapped. And I don't like it. I actually hate it when people make excuses for the African governments, these government officials, as if we're just this weak continent and we just what else could we do? What else could we do? We just have to give up, right? We can't do nothing against big bad America. That's not the case. They are willingly participating in all the nonsense. Willingly. They can just tell America to fuck off. And there's nothing America could do outside of bombing an African country. But they couldn't twist it to make themselves look good, so they wouldn't do it. They need willing participation, which is what Nigeria is. She also mentioned that the Christians aren't uniquely being targeted, right? Muslims are also being targeted as well. 3,000 Christians dead, 2,000 Muslims dead. And that doesn't surprise me. Again, Trump, all these guys, they're on some weird Christian stuff. Christians are being Christian, even though Trump isn't even a Christian himself, but whatever. What America are doing is what they've done to Africa for years. What America are doing now is the reason why people like me are in the UK and people like you are in America. ISIS, America funding that. So America funding them. They're creating a problem and then they're coming with the solution. Just like they did to our ancestors, right? They would back the people who eventually sold us, right? They'll back them, fund them. They then defeated our ancestors and then captured them and sold them as slaves. This is something that has been happening for like 500 years. And the African leaders still allow it to happen today. Why the hell couldn't Nigeria just deal with this themselves? Why? Why must America intervene? Oh, they felt backed into a corner. No, they didn't. How is Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso standing up to the likes of America, but Nigeria can't? Nigeria just can't do it.
Trump just bombed Nigeria and everyone is misreporting it.
Myself included, because I forgot to mention one of the most important things. And that is this, the Alliance of Sahel States. This is Nigeria, and this is a union of home-ruled African countries that have recently kicked out their former colonizer, France, which America is famously allied with. And this alliance just called recently for a joint large-scale operation against extremists, the same extremists that Trump claims to be fighting in Nigeria. For context, these three states, as well as I believe one of these now, within the past 2 years have undergone mass revolutions against the French colonizers to kick them out and retain control of their resources. And America, through labeling them terrorists, spreading and propagating mass propaganda campaigns against them, and at times enabling actual military violence against them, have clearly labeled and expressed their interest in ending this home rule. Like, for example, did you see that story about the criminalization of homosexuality in Burkina Faso? I wonder why they mentioned that and not the criminalization of homosexuality in Saudi Arabia, America's ally. So yes, violence in this region is not only to immediately grab the resources of Nigeria, which already has quite a strong security relationship with America, but also to justify American imperial violence in this region to destabilize the countries that certainly do not: Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. And that is because the American empire has always relied on extracting resources from the global south, and these three home rule countries greatly threaten that. So it is important not only to undermine the myths that they make up to justify this violence, but search for the real reason they are aiming to inflict it. And that, from my analysis, will always come down to the American empire continuing to do what it always does, extracting from the global south. And we should not search for excuses for them to do it, and we should destroy each and every excuse they do. There is no Christian genocide. There is no validity to them attacking ISIL when they also funded ISIL. And they are certainly not protecting African sovereignty by attempting to undermine popular regimes that literally ousted colonizers. It is also illegal under both federal and international law. Condemn this on all fronts and tolerate no lies about it.
The security relationship he mentioned is just Nigeria twerking for America, ass up, face down, looking back, twerking.
America didn't bomb Nigeria because of oil. That story does not make any sense. If you know anything about Nigeria's oil industry or Nigerian politics, you'll know that the story is completely false. And I say this for multiple reasons because, for one, if we go into Nigerian history, 30 years ago in the 1990s, the Nigerian government worked with Shell, a Western corporation, to massacre more than 2,000 civilians. As in, the Nigerian government killed 2,000 civilians to protect Western oil corporations. The civilians were protesting against oil spills and lack of development. The Nigerian government just massacred them.
Why would America bomb Nigeria for oil when Nigeria is already twerking for America? They wouldn't have to bomb them. Just be a light conversation, a little talk.
Please tell me why America would bomb a country that is willing to kill its own civilians to protect America's oil. Doesn't make sense. Secondly, Nigeria's oil export terminals, as in the platforms we have to use to store oil before it's even exported, as in we cannot export oil without these terminals. 5 of the 6 of them are owned by foreign corporations. 5 out of 6 of Nigeria's oil export terminals are owned by foreign Western oil corporations. 4 out of 6, I think, are American. Texaco, Chevron, ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil owns 2, if I'm not mistaken. So all of our oil resources are already owned by America. It doesn't make sense for America to bomb Nigeria to gain access to what it already owns. And beyond all that, if you really want to tell the story that America bombed Nigeria because of oil, why exactly did America go to the complete other side of the country to bomb? Most of Nigeria's oil resources are in the south region, or eastern region, if you want to be specific, Niger Delta area. So why exactly would America go ahead and bomb the northwestern extremities of Nigeria if it was bombing them for oil? It doesn't make sense. Guys, please, when we want to look at these things, let's try and actually understand the politics on ground, understand how these economies work. It's not just oil every single time. Sometimes the story is a lot more complicated and nuanced than that. And in this situation, it's very nuanced. It's not oil at all. It's much grander.
I think people make up these stories because they want Africa to be the victim. And the people are the victim, the true victim. But the leaders are not. And Africa isn't this helpless continent that can't do anything and they just... That's not the case. They're not being subjugated by the West. They are actively participating in their own subjugation. I mentioned this before. The Congolese pussy gave Trump a Nobel Peace Prize. Essentially, America are bombing Africa so that it's normal. We see, oh look here, we're bombing them because we want to help. So bombing Africa becomes something that, okay, now we can justify doing this. So if we have to bomb Burkina Faso, bomb Mali, bomb Niger, yeah, we can justify it because we're trying to help. They always have to be the good guy. Understand this. They always have to be the good guy.
This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone. I just can't let this go. This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the